views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, everybody. It's time for the Bronx Buzz, and you will notice we are not at BronxNet's Mercy College studios for obvious reasons. The studios, the college, everything is closed. And we'll be doing the Bronx Buzz as we always have, this time from Gary's apartment. And so a hearty welcome to the program to all of our Bronx viewers. And I'll tell you, in case you aren't familiar with the Bronx Buzz, what we do is we talk to journalists and writers and editors and videographers and photographers and sometimes filmmakers, anybody who puts stuff out in the Bronx. And we kind of give you a chance to find out what they're thinking about. Obviously, the coronavirus, COVID-19, is on everybody's mind. It's changed all of our lives. We don't know for how long it is going to be doing that. But one of the major changes for a lot of us is the elimination of essentially, hard to imagine, all of the sports leagues, from Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA, NCAA. I mean, you name it, it's been canceled. So when in doubt, when it comes to sports, we talk to our favorite Bronx guru of sports. He's on Sirius. He's on everywhere, is Howie Karpin. Nice to have you with us, my longtime friend.
Yeah, this is great. A little distraction, hopefully, for some people.
Yeah, and which is ironic considering that sports is the distraction for so many people. And people, it's like if you say to me or to you, I'm sure, if you're cooped up in your home for a week or you don't really want to go out or you don't want to do a lot of socializing, there's not the time for that. What would you be doing? You'd be watching the ball games. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to do. But how much time do you think players would need to get back into shape? I mean, they were tuning up, and it's really almost like clockwork. They were tuning up. How much are they going to really need to once they say, okay, now we know that opening day is, goodness gracious, May 1st, June 1st, whenever it is, how much time?
It's hard to put a number on it because baseball is unlike any other sport. The spring training is basically for the pitchers to get their arms ready. The hitters don't really need a whole lot of time. And maybe if their timing's off a little bit, it could take maybe 10 to 20 at-bats once you're in the flow of the season to get that back. When you haven't played, it may take a little longer, but it wouldn't take as long as it is for the pitchers. So there's going to have to be contingency plans if and when the season does start. If you want me to offer a guess is when I'm thinking it may start, I'm looking at
Sure.
Memorial Day. I'm looking at late May, Memorial Day for the season starting. So they will not be able to get 162 games in, even with some of the suggestions that I made in the column last week. So there's going to have to be contingency plans with once they do get back. And it's going to take, I'd have to say, there'd have to be at least a 2-week period for the pitchers to get their arms ready.
Right, and certainly we don't want anybody to get hurt. So let's just use that as, Memorial Day weekend. So I don't know, what is that, about a third of the season, a little more than a quarter, 2/5 of the season?
Well, with the early start, that's going to be over 2 months of the season. It'll be about 9 weeks. So, I mean, how many games they play in 9 weeks? Maybe 40 games, something like that. You may have a 120-game season this year, the way it's shaping up.
If we're lucky. I mean, of course, nobody knows what's going to happen. I thought your column, let's review that. Howie, for folks who don't know, on New York Sports Day, you can see Karpin's Corner. How you put it out every week, right?
Right, every Friday or Saturday. It comes out by the weekend. Try and give people a little different perspective than what they see in other sites and things like that, and tap on my experience of 40 years in the business to provide at least an enlightening read and an informational read, and come up with ideas that people may would debate like you do. You're an intelligent baseball fan. You debate
Okay.
You debate the points, and I want people to talk about the column. This one was. I just made some suggestions as to how maybe they can salvage this season.
Now, among the suggestions, and I thought it was interesting, of course, that there's a trickle down concept, really, but was to play doubleheaders. You and I both know, and older baseball fans will remember Sunday doubleheaders every Sunday. It's one way to make up games. Of course, then, as I was saying, the trickle down is Players Association. There are new rules on how many games they can play and all that sort of thing. That's all going to impact, what the possibilities are, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, I mean, the CBA is up after next season, I think after 2021. So, the relations between the players and the owners, they're not at stake here, but you hope they come together to, at least in the 2020 season, and maybe in the long run end up with a better relationship, because there was some divisiveness between the sides over last year's free agency market, which was really nothing compared to the previous years. And then this year it kind of came back. So there's logistical things here to deal with, and also relationships, between the two sides. But both realize they need to play ball. I mean, if anything that we're realizing during this time period is that players need to play. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, they can have all these labor issues and everything, and without having anything going on right now, I hope the people who are involved with the actual playing of the games realize that you need to be on the field, and you can't let a labor issue, or right now this is out of their control. The labor issues are in their control, so you hope that if any good comes out of this, they realize they need to be on the field for a lot of reasons.
This is a larger question than this conversation between you and me, and to me, in a way, and you talked about let's say, a labor issue between, players and management. I think there will be, after this, a coming together and realizing, you know what, we can't be that selfish anymore, because if we are, I mean, right now, I can't imagine people are going to be able to spend like they used to spend at the ballpark after this. There are many, many people who are going to be out of work, high ticket prices, high prices for even beer and hot dogs at the ballpark. I think the whole thing is going to have to shrink down as a result. Now, that's going to be hard pain, but while people are struggling, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of people across the country are struggling with their livelihoods, it's very hard to justify some of the salaries and some of the other excesses that have been going on in the sports industry. And I wonder if in the long run, the whole thing will have to shrink down, and they'll have to say, you know what, let's stop fighting over it, and let's really, like you said, get out and play ball.
That's a great point. I mean, remember after the 1994 shutdown, when they came back in 95, there was a concerted effort to be more amenable to the fans. Players had stopped giving autographs, and there was a time when they weren't allowed, throwing balls in the stands. Remember that players would get fined if they threw a ball in the stands? Well, once they went out in 94, that stopped. They stopped that stuff, and they became more amenable to the fans. So what you were talking about is maybe a way they're going to have to go, slash ticket prices and prices for concessions. You got to make it more amenable for the fans to come in. They were losing attendance anyway to a lot of distractions other than sports, like the video game, revolution that's come in the last 10 years or whatever. So yeah, they were losing customers to other distractions. So they're going to have to make a concerted effort to bring fans back. And some of your ideas may be the way they go.
And again, I'm just thinking about, as you know, we always think about everyday people in the Bronx, with their priorities, with what they're going to have to pay for their kids. Many of the people are going to struggle to pay for their rent right now, and many of the other considerations. They'll be very happy to, take their kids to the ball game, but at, X dollars per pop, as well as whatever it costs to buy the kid a T-shirt. And on top of that, instead of spending $39.95 for a T-shirt, maybe they'd consider it if it was $25. And right. I think that's going to be a reality that's going to have to hit across the board. And then we'll talk about the other sports.
Yeah, it's they have to come through. They have to cut their losses, so to speak. Yeah. Instead of losing, whatever $10 million. If they lose $5 million, that's $5 million that they're not losing because they cut prices and whatever they do from there. So they're going to have to do something here. I mean, something. I would think that the teams are at least discussing things to be done when they do get back. And what you're suggesting is one of the things they may have to go that route and take some losses, but get the fans back into it.
Yeah, and I must tell you, and again, it's a larger discussion than for you and me here today. I think this is going to have to happen across the board, whether it be for airlines or whatever else. You want people to do it. The whole economy is going to shrink because people will presumably have less money. Let's talk a little bit about the other sports now. NHL and NBA, I guess they're pretty much on equal footing in that they just simply ended the seasons. There is pain there because obviously the exorbitant amounts of money that it costs to go to a Knicks game or a Nets game. Just what are your thoughts about the NHL and NBA, or is it really not much to say because at this point, what are you going to do?
Well, there's two options here. They've suspended the season. I don't think they've ended them in their minds. They're, totally. I'm sure they'd like to get a little regular season back. If they go right to the playoffs in their respective sports, not every team is going to make the playoffs. So I'm sure they'd like to get some of those other teams to at least get some gates. A couple of days in before they shut down for the off season. But those sports would logistically could go right into a playoff more so than maybe baseball could. Again, coming back to the pitchers. So I mean, they want to get the playoffs in. The NHL had already contacted arenas about dates in July. They're willing to stretch the season and maybe give out the cup at the end of July. And there's also been talk about maybe starting the next season a little later in the year. So, there's a lot of things that are going to come out of this for all the sports.
I mean, what's your thought about the NFL?
I think the OTAs are going to get squashed. I don't think they're going to have a normal
OTA. Howie, I'm sorry.
Those are the optional workouts during the season, and those mini camps and things like that. As far as the draft, they said they're going ahead with the draft, but there'll be no audience. Now, the draft is going to be in Las Vegas this year. So I think they're going to go back to the old way of just the commissioner announcing it, and I have a feeling that whoever the representatives are will either be on a video conference call or a conference call when they make the picks. So there won't be a lot of people around in the actual site where they do the picks. They'll actually go back to the old ways. But, football and the NFL is in a little bit of a bind here because their free agency period started. A number of people wanted them to scale that back a little bit because it's not a great optic that these guys are getting big money at this time. What's happening around the country.
That's what I was saying before. How can you justify some of these salaries in light of everyday people who are hardworking people, who own a restaurant or work in a restaurant, and they haven't collected a paycheck in, several months,
I know it's not a good optic, and I'm surprised they're going ahead with this. Use your head, as to how you perceive yourself as being invulnerable economically, but you're going to be affected too if this thing continues. Who knows if their season will even start on time if this thing goes months into it? So, yeah, it's not a good optic, and it's a little surprising that they went ahead with this period.
Howie, one thing that will not end is that, number one, our friendship, and two, that we will invite you back no matter where I do the Bronx Buzz from. I was hoping we were going to have you back to talk about predictions for the year. For the baseball season. We'll do that the next time, hopefully.
Yeah, once we get word that the season gets underway, I'd love to come back.
Right. You're the best. Howie Karpin, you can find him on New York Sports Day, Sirius XM, and wherever sports are happening, that's where Howie Karpin is. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Always great to be with you. Be well.
Talk to you. So thanks to Howie Karpin, and what we'll do is we will be right back. We're going to talk to somebody who's a great boxing writer, but he's been writing about the Bronx. And so we'll continue. Bronx Buzz from my apartment. That's how we do it. Let's be right back.
Hey Yankee fans, the baseball season might be over, but the off-season baseball Yankee talk doesn't stop. Catch us every Tuesday, 7 o'clock, 68 Optimum, Channel 34 Fios.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. In case you just tuned in, we're doing it from Gary's apartment. Hard to believe, but of course, in times like these, you got to do what you can. And we just continue right along. BronxNet Television has really made it possible for all of us to still talk to the people we need to talk to. It is my pleasure to welcome aboard. I want to make sure I get it right. Ryan Songalia. Ryan was introduced to us through the Mott Haven Herald, where he wrote what I thought was an interesting kind of introductory story to coronavirus. But upon further investigation, we found out that Ryan is an award-winning journalist, a hardworking sports reporter and editor, a renowned boxing analyst, which I was not aware of, member of the Boxing Writers Association of America, contributor to The Ring magazine. Welcome to our first ever edition in Gary's apartment.
Well, I feel honored. This is historic.
Yeah, I guess so. We're all learning about how to do it. Anyway, just a little background from you. Where did you grow up? How did you start getting into boxing? And I guess that really has been your passion and your introduction into sports broadcasting.
Well, I grew up in Cliffside Park, New Jersey, right across the Hudson River in Bergen County. But I didn't get started in boxing until I was a teenager in Union City, New Jersey. I've always wanted to be a fighter, but apparently you get punched in the head a lot if you do that.
Apparently.
Yeah, so someone forgot to cue me in on that, and you have to train really hard. So those two things I wasn't so interested in, but I was really in love with boxing, and after my freshman year of college, I said, "Hey, you know what? I got an idea. Let's write about boxing instead." So it allows me to be in this world and see so many interesting things and meet so many people that I looked up to as a kid, and really get to know a lot of the behind-the-scenes stories that make these very interesting people.
You know, I hadn't planned on this sort of dialogue, but it's okay with me because I do want to talk about your writing with the Mott Haven Herald. Talk to me a little bit about the state of boxing right now. I mean, things have changed over the years. Where is it at? I don't mean immediately with coronavirus. I mean, we understand that everybody and everything is on hold. I mean, I don't see boxers being able to do their thing from 6 feet apart. But tell me a little bit about the state of boxing and where it's at right now. Because boxing is big in the Bronx, man.
Oh, of course, in fact, Iran Barkley is from the Bronx, Patterson Houses. There's the Bronx Bull, of course, Jake LaMotta, Aaron Davis, so many great boxers from the Bronx. Boxing right now is, Larry Merchant, the HBO commentator, had a great line. He said, "Nothing's going to kill boxing, nothing's going to save it." So, we see it on more television and online outlets than ever before. I think there's a lot of interest in the heavyweight division right now. Tyson Fury just knocked out Deontay Wilder to regain the lineal heavyweight championship. He brings a lot of fans, and when the heavyweight division is doing well, the sport's doing well. So it's doing good with Tyson Fury on top right now.
Let's be fair. There are women boxers too, and we've had great Bronx women boxers.
My good friend Maureen Shea, of course.
Of course, Maureen Shea, who, frankly, just to drop a name, she and I did play-by-play of a couple of local outdoor boxing matches that were taking place on the streets of the Bronx. So I know Maureen well. I haven't seen her in a little while. I think she moved out to California. But yeah, one of the greats, man. One of the absolute all-time greats for the sport. And one of the great people. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about you. You talked about going to grad school. Why did you go to grad school, and why and how did you land at the Newmark School? And then, of course, that brings us home to the Bronx, to the Mott Haven Herald.
I'd always wanted to get into graduate school. I actually always wanted to finish my degrees. I never finished my undergrad, so I felt like, well, after like 14 years or so of doing reporting, I might as well try something. And I was going to actually go and get my 4-year degree, and the opportunity came to do my master's. So I went and took it. It's been a great experience so far. So many great people there, and we're learning things like on the fly. Like right now, we're learning how to do Google Hangouts. All this
you just learned something today.
Exactly. All this technology stuff I never knew anything about. I'm an old school newspaper writer, so for me this is a great experience. I'm having a blast, and so many interesting characters there. I mean, for people from all over the world who share the same goal, which is to get to the bottom of the story.
You sound like a lot of people that we talk to on this program, young people who start one way and they say, maybe, I was in the financial business. And then I said, why don't I report on the financial business? Do you have a sense that, you're going to take what you learn here and what you learned from the Bronx and then apply that to, maybe another craft? Or do you feel like you'll take that and say, okay, now I'll be a better sports writer? Or who knows?
I'm a writer at heart. The only other skill I ever had before, I think, was like I waited tables, and I wasn't good at that. So I figure I'm with this writing thing for now. And boxing, is my passion. But I'm doing a lot of other things. I have a lot of other passions. I'm curious about people just trying to do their best. That's what I think reporting is about: is finding out what issues are impacting people. I always had interest in political reporting. I just never had an outlet for it, and now I do here at grad school. But boxing's what pays the bills, and I can't complain. I love it,
Oh, I'm not. I'd be the last to discourage you. So let's talk about the experience. Now, how long have you been working, let's say, with the Mott Haven Herald?
Since January, the beginning of the semester. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story.
We like funny stories.
I was sitting in class, and I had this. I the night before the first day of class, I came up with this whole plan. I'm like, we don't have a sports section. Let me create a sports section, and then I could run that sports section, and then tell my professors, all right, well, I'll see you guys in May, and just coast by. And the professor, Judy Watson, who was amazing, she actually she singles me. I was like, no, Ryan, I see what you're gonna do here. No, because you already did all the sports writing, and I'm like, you got me. And then I looked at the board. What else was left? Business. I guess it's close, at least alphabetically, to boxing. So business. Yes.
So they are you technically the business reporter for the Mott Haven Herald?
Yeah, I am.
We can share personal stories. I have taught broadcasting and media for a long time. She did the right thing, because if you were in your comfort zone, you wouldn't learn anything. But if you were challenged to get out and find, and learn a new industry, deal with a different kind of people, even if you were to go back to sportscasting, you'd be much better off.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I really appreciate her having that forethought.
All right. So now you've been in the Bronx since January. Now, I guess let's talk prior to coronavirus and post-coronavirus. What did you learn, or what did you discover in the Bronx before this became the only story to talk about?
The Bronx is just so lively. It reminded me a little bit of being back in the Philippines. Just all the energy, people out there, like in the areas like the Hub. I walked through there. I could feel a sort of excitement out there, and I'm told, obviously, that by the summer, the Hub is the place to be. So I could feel that, and I just realized that the Bronx is not a place that you can observe from far away. You have to be in it. You have to be there. You have to talk to people. You have to realize that the way it's depicted by people from outside is not the Bronx. The Bronx, so many people that are doing positive things. A lot of interesting small businesses that I've come into. I didn't know what to expect when I got there, because to be honest, only times I've ever been to the Bronx before this was, I'm a big Yankees fan. I always go to Yankee Stadium. But this is the first time I was actually able to go around South Bronx. I love it. I think it's amazing there.
What I really appreciate, I've lived here all my life, and of course have reported on it and done media here for many, many years. What I really appreciate is somebody from the outside and what your impressions are, because in many ways our culture is still undefined for the rest of the world. They don't know who we are or what we're about. And when you come in and say, oh, that's my impression of it, it's frankly what I would think.
Yeah, what I knew about the South Bronx specifically, which is what I cover beforehand, was that it was the birthplace of hip hop, and then I didn't realize that, like, oh, I thought that's just like a little fact, but people take that really seriously there. And in fact, one of the first events that I covered was an LGBT business fair, and someone actually quizzed me, what is the address of where hip hop started? And I knew like sort of the answer at the time, and I feel bad that I can't recall it right now. But I mean, people have a certain sense of pride about where they're from, and it has its own character. I hope that through my writing and of course your work as well, that people can see that the Bronx is really where it's at. It's
There you go.
People talk about Brooklyn right now, but give it a few years, they're going to be talking about the Bronx.
Well, we invented hip hop. You can go through all the music we've invented, and as I said, I think we're still defining culture. Anyway, I had planned to talk about this article you wrote about local businesses starting to feel the coronavirus pinch. I watched a Facebook Live message by Michael Brady of the Third Avenue Bid this morning, and there are challenges out there, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. In fact, I was speaking yesterday with the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. The food industry is what I'm told has been hit the hardest. Great performances. The catering business out of the South Bronx had to furlough hundreds of their employees. Speaking of hip hop, the Bistro restaurant, for instance, had to lay off 60 people. This is going to be a story that we're following for a while right now, because even once things start to get back to normal, there's the recovery period. The Bronx Chamber of Commerce, in addition to all the other chambers of commerce around the city, have issued a letter of recommendations asking for relaxed measures of some of the laws that have gone into effect over the past year or so, to give businesses a little bit of leeway. There's new legislation federally that has come out that was presented today, that would, if passed as is, provide $300 billion in emergency funds for small businesses. A lot of people are waiting and seeing it. We're so used to relying on our neighbors, and right now we're really looking for help from further out.
From the outside, neighbors don't have any answers either, frankly, because I think all of us are pretty much in the same, in the same category and dealing with the same issues. I guess as a final question, what's your beat like? Are you out there all the time? Do you write once a week? I mean, where are you at in terms of what you're doing?
Well, I was out there until we were told by school that we're not allowed to face-to-face anymore, which is kind of, well, I mean, but in fairness, I'm used to doing this sort of internet interface anyways, because I cover Asian boxing. But before, I was taking the train up to Mott Haven and walking around Hunts Point and just feeling the beat of the street. And there were places that I already had like my favorite coffee spots picked out, all my favorite eateries.
Ryan, we got to go, but I really hope you get a chance to do that again, because getting a good young writer from elsewhere to come and see our streets and feel it and appreciate, which apparently you do, appreciate the culture we have here. I think it's a great thing. And I'm counting the days till it all ends. One of the reasons is to get Ryan Songalia back on the streets. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on the Bronx Buzz, our first ever from Gary's apartment. And folks, that'll do it for this week's program. We thank Howie Karpin. We thank Ryan Songalia. And guess what? Yeah, we are from this spot, from this chair. We'll be back next week on the Bronx Buzz. And on Bronx Talk on Monday night, we'll have Senator Gustavo Rivera, and we'll talk about all the issues that you can imagine you'd want to ask the Senate's health chair about. So we'll see you around. Good night.